Okay, so this topic actually popped up firstly on the Vancouver Canucks subreddit, and it's one that I saw and I was like, that's actually a really good question. Just taking a look at the Vancouver Canucks on paper, what they have and what they're supposed to be able to do, how good is this team exactly? So, let's go over the roster, let's take a look at how exactly this team is assembled, and try to compare this team we have right now to the bubble team of 2020. Because I don't need to tell you once again, the bubble team of 2020, the Vancouver Canucks of that year, were able to go to the second round of the playoffs. They beat Minnesota in the play-ins, they beat St. Louis in the first round, and then they were one game away, 1 or 2 goals and about 10 minutes away from the third round, where they would have played against the Dallas Stars had everything gone their way against Vegas. But that Vancouver Canucks team went pretty far. At least according to what we thought they would be able to do. So, if we try to look at the Vancouver Canucks team from that season, and we take a look at where they are today, things are actually pretty interesting when you try to look at that conversation. So, this is the lineup of the Vancouver Canucks the night they lost to Vegas. Miller, Pettersson, Boeser, Pearson, Horvat, Toffoli, Roussel, Gaudette, Sutter, and Mott, Beagle, Virtanen. On D, we had Edler Stetcher, Hughes, Tanev, Fantenberg, and Myers, and for goaltenders, we had Thatcher Demko. Now, the way this Vancouver Canucks team is assembled, they were good enough to the point that they actually made the second round in Game 7. Now, we know the reason the Vancouver Canucks even had a Game 7 to fight for was because Thatcher Demko was Thatcher Demko, not really because the Vancouver Canucks skaters were so superior in Games 5 and 6, it's because Thatcher Demko stole the show, and he almost did in Game 7, it's just that Brock Boeser shot it a little bit too high. Now when it comes to this team and the way it's assembled, Miller, Pettersson, Boeser, okay, the Lotto line, we know it, we love it, we know what they're about, we know they're fantastic, it's the best line on the team. The second line is Pearson, Horvat, Toffoli, and that line for the most part was a pretty good shutdown line, where Bo Horvat and Pearson would be given the big minutes when they had Louis Eriksson on their wing too. They would be getting all the defensive responsibility, and it was really good to see Horvat doing his thing. The only problem with this line was Tyler Toffoli was on it, and Tyler Toffoli only really had 1 or 2 games in the playoffs where he was effective. Now, he was effective the rest of the time in the regular season when Brock Boeser was out, because they played him with Petey and they played him with Miller. The second they put him on a shutdown line, that's when he lost all his effectiveness. He was really good in the power play, but that was about it. Now, the third line is where things start to crumble away. Roussel, Gaudette, and Sutter was an absolute nothing line, and there's nothing you can do that will convince me otherwise. They were a line of bodies that didn't really do anything in the playoffs, and sure, while I do love Adam Gaudette and what he was able to do with the Vancouver Canucks and his entire story as a prospect and whatnot, that line just didn't do anything. Like, I'm sorry, I know Gaudette was a good point producer in the regular season that year, but take a look at what they did in the playoffs. I mean, Adam Gaudette, 10 games played, Brandon Sutter was out here with a goal and 5 assists for 6 points. He actually did produce, but Brandon Sutter's production came mostly in like one little stint. And then you had Antoine Roussel, who had 4 points in 17 games. This line right here, especially in the second round, wasn't really doing anything. Then you go over onto the fourth line of Mott, Beagle, and Virtanen. Now, Jake Virtanen, as we noted about him earlier, he had 3 points in 16 games. He had one good game. One game against St. Louis where he absolutely went off. Jay Beagle had 2 points in 17 games, 1 goal that was like super important also against St. Louis, and then Tyler Mott was pretty much the only one that actually did a lot more than the number suggests. He had 5 points in 17 games. You could really feel that Tyler Mott was fantastic in the postseason last year, despite being a bottom 6 forward. So, pretty much with the 2020 bubble, you had a top scoring line of Miller, Petey, Boeser, a second shutdown line of Horvat, Pearson, and Toffoli, and then you had bottom 6 guys that didn't really do much. Like, at all. Mott was okay, Sutter was fine sometimes, Beagle was okay sometimes, but that was about it. The other guys on this team did so little compared to everybody else, especially compared to that top line, that it's almost negligible. Now, when you take a look at the Vancouver Canucks forward core now, okay, you still have the Lotto line. Petey, Boeser, Miller, they're still here, and they're all older now, so you could say that that's actually a lot better. Boeser is better, Pettersson should be better, And, I mean, JT Miller is JT Miller. He's been a beast this entire time. The second line has Bo Horvat, who can score and who can shut down opposition. You have Nils Höglander over there. And you also have Connor Garland, who is fantastic. I cannot stress just how good I think Connor Garland is as a hockey player. This guy's going to go out here and be such a strong secondary scorer that all of a sudden Bo Horvat has a very legit point producer on his line. And we know how good Bo Horvat can be, not to mention the upward progression of Nils Höglander. These are all very good scoring players, and honestly, this second line, production-wise, I think it could be so much better than the second line we had a year ago in the bubble. Höglander, Horvat, Garland, a lot better than the second line of Horvat, Toffoli, and Pearson, in my opinion. Then you have the third line of the Vancouver Canucks today. Daily Faceoff said it's going to be Pearson, Dickinson, and Podkolzin. Those are all very legit NHL players. Dickinson, a really good shutdown center. Pearson, we know his two-way capabilities. Podkolzin is coming over here, and we all expect him to be able to play NHL minutes with his big frame and his defensive responsibility. So this line right here, the third line, you could say this is the shutdown line if you really want to argue it. And then our fourth line, Tyler Mott's there. I like Mott a lot. Brandon Sutter's there. I've said this entire time. Sutter is good as a fourth-line center with very limited minutes. When you give him power play time and you play him in the top six, that's when he starts crumbling away. And then Matthew Highmore is here as well because, okay, yeah. So all in all, I think the Vancouver Canucks roster this year, of the forwards at least, is a lot better than we were a year ago in the bubble. Besser, Miller, Petey is better because those players are older. Horvat, Höglander, Garland is a lot better than Pearson, Horvat, Toffoli. Pearson, Dickinson, and Podkolzin as a third line is a much better shutdown line than the gosh darn Roussel, Gaudette, Sutter line we had before. And our fourth line today is better than the fourth line of the past two. So, Canucks forward core this year, a lot better in my opinion. Now for defense, things get a little bit weird. The Canucks defense now goes Hughes, Hamonic, Ekman, Larson, Myers, Rathbone, Poolman. You can also throw in Juolevi if you want to, along with Luke Schenn. The Vancouver Canucks D-core back then was Edler, Stetcher, Hughes, Tanev, Fantenberg, Myers. Now, Myers and Hughes are the only two remaining from this lineup before that are still here today. Hughes, you would like to think he gets a little bit better defensively, but the offense stays the way it is. Tyler Myers actually improved from where he was a year ago to where he is today. I think he actually did have a really good 2021 comparative to what we thought he would have been able to achieve. Does he go up from there? Who knows? Edler, Stetcher, Tanev, these guys, though, really good defensively. And we all kind of know we're losing out on that heading into the 2021 season. Mostly because, I mean, look, Hamonic is a downgrade of Tanev. Ekman Larson, huge downgrade over Edler when it comes to defensive responsibility, but there is a huge boost in points. Tucker Poolman also has a lot more to prove because he was seen as a really strange pickup, especially for the contract. He wasn't really as good as we thought he could have been with the Winnipeg Jets. Now as for Jack Rathbone, if you compare Rathbone and Fantenberg because they're in the same spot in the lineup, I think Rathbone takes it 9 out of 10 times. I really do like Rathbone and the way he is able to play. I think he's going to get a lot better as time goes on as well. So ultimately, when it comes to being able to score goals, I think the Vancouver Canucks lines this year compared to the bubble year, a lot better. A lot more offense from guys like Connor Garland, Nils Höglander. The shutdown line of this year is the third line instead of the second line with Bo Horvat, which will ultimately give Bo Horvat a lot more room to go out there and score a lot of goals. Oliver Ekman-Larsson's a huge upgrade offensively compared to Edler, but the defensive side of things is where things crumble away, and you have guys who are defensively inferior compared to the 2019-20 roster, albeit with a lot more potential of scoring goals. As for goaltenders, though, Markstrom Demko back in 2020 is a little different from Demko Halak today. You could see the argument that Demko right now is better than Demko was before, and Jarmo Halak is honestly really good too. Some of the comments here in the Reddit post talk about how Markstrom is as good as 2021 Demko, and backup Demko from 2020 cancels out with Jarmo Halak, and because backups are backups, it doesn't really make too much sense to compare your teams based off of how good the backups are. But either way, that's the team today. Demko Halak versus Markstrom Demko. I do feel very confident in Thatcher Demko, especially based off of how he's progressed the past year. So all in all, the Vancouver Canucks, I think, have a better roster in terms of being able to put up points, but who just knows how many goals they're going to be able to let in. Demko's supposed to be better, same with Quinn Hughes, same with some of the other guys in this D-core, so we'll see how exactly they progress that way. But either way, talk to me in the comments what you think. Is this Vancouver Canucks team today better than the team that went to the second round and almost the third round a year ago. I hope you enjoyed this video. Josh Rolls 99, and bye.